Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. Our guest for this episode is my friend Jason Marsteiner. Jason was our very first guest on the Mountainside Podcast for episode 1. Jason is a wilderness survival expert. He runs a survival school based right here in Colorado, and it had been some time since we caught up. I thoroughly enjoyed having Jason in the podcast studio again, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. Jason, salute, man.
Salute. Good to see you again.
Oh, it's awesome to have you in here, man. Yeah. Having you back in. You were our first episode, right? Which is crazy, right?
Yeah. What was that, about 2 years ago, wasn't it?
God, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, man. Right. And I remember we started this thing pre-pandemic, and then pandemic came along. Mm-hmm. You weren't the first person that said yes to the show,
right?
But you were the first one that said yes to the show during a pandemic. Yeah. And the whole reason I wanted to bring you in was because you were putting out all this awesome information of like, God, it was so crazy. I think you came in like at the very beginning of April, and I don't know when we went into lockdown. It must have been like
pretty close.
Into March, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was like the first week of our actual lockdown. And I was like, yeah, dude, come on in. Let's do this thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
you were open to it. We didn't have all these sponsors or anything on the table. There was literally a tub of like Clorox wipes.
Right?
I don't think we had lighting.
Yeah.
We had one camera. Mm-hmm. It's a totally different show now. So
no, it's awesome. It's
and
good to see
I was a horrible host too. So I got to publicly apologize to you. In the intro, I didn't call you by your first name properly. I got the last name right.
Yeah,
but
I think I got that. Josh.
I think I called you
Jacob
Josh or Jeff and
Jerk. I don't know.
Yeah, so and in good fashion, we have figured out how to go back and edit stuff. So I'm gonna make it right for you. And on this one, we're gonna make it up to you, Jason. I apologize publicly, man.
Nothing to be sorry about.
And thanks for being our first one, man.
No, it was awesome.
The whole reason, like, we shifted gears. The very first episode for the podcast was going to be Colorado Division of Wildlife. We had them teed up. That's how I wanted to start the show. Pandemic came along with their restrictions. They couldn't make it in. And I was like, dude, I need to talk to somebody that's relative to what's going on in the world right now. Right. And I think, we were probably in that first or second week of lockdown. And I found you on Instagram or one of the social platforms, or it might have just been YouTube. Mm-hmm. And you were making these awesome videos of like, while the world was panicking and buying toilet paper, you were actually putting out logical stuff like, this is how you properly take off a mask so you don't get the germs that are on your hands in your mouth or in your, this is how you properly take off rubber gloves. And I'll never forget that. I was like, this makes so much more sense than the fear mongering.
Yeah, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it right. Yeah, and things have changed, I think, over the past 2 years. We figured out more what's going on, a little bit more. I mean, we still have the panic and the fear mongering and everything going on, but, you just kind of live your day how best you can. And I don't know, you see it all the time. There's the two sides of the fence right now. Everybody's arguing mask, no mask, shot, no shot. And
it's been politicized too, which is ridiculous. That's another thing that irritates me. I don't know. I wish we could just leave politics out of a lot of different shit, like biology. And, personally, what you're putting in your body, I think everybody should have their own choice on what they want to do and how they want to do it. And, shouldn't have to be locked inside if there's no real threat to you, So.
Yeah, I'm right down the middle of the road, and I just try to, let me do what I want to my body as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. And you can do whatever it is you want to your body. Now, there's arguments about that, but, I don't really like to get into that argument. So
yeah, I hear you. And
just take your precautions the best you can, the most that you're willing, and leave everybody else alone.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't force your opinion on somebody else, I don't think.
So that's what this country, I guess, is about, isn't it?
And that's one thing that we're trying to do here is we're trying to be neutral, even though, we play on both sides of the fence a lot, but I'm just trying to be neutral with it. So we don't even have to go down this politics road. I'm way more interested in talking to you and hitting you up on stuff that we didn't cover in that first episode, man. That first episode was awesome. Even though we touched on the pandemic lightly, I think we talked about a lot more about what this podcast is about, being backcountry information, conservation, awareness of how to treat the outdoors, and that sort of stuff. And we talked about first aid, and you brought up some really good stuff of like what should be in a first aid kit and all that. And for our listeners that maybe didn't listen to that very first episode, go ahead and just tell us what you do. You teach a survival school. You have a bunch of survival stuff online, content that you don't actually have to go to your school to learn something. So
I'm the owner, founder of Colorado Mountain Man Survival. I started that back in 2010 when I originated. It was just kind of helping people build bug out bags, survival kits, how to prep their home for disasters, whether it be a power outage or a snowstorm or whatever it may be. But that quickly grew into people wanting me to take them out and show them how to use the gear that I was selling them. I was doing custom bug out bags and things like that. So after about 5 years of building the kits and whatnot, I started actually taking people out into the woods and training them, wilderness survival, both modern and primitive technology is, I guess, so all from rubbing a stick together to create fire to using a map and compass. But in 2018, it kind of grew beyond me, and I started bringing in guest instructors from all over the country that knew a skill better than I did. Were an expert in their field, like wilderness first responder. I bring in a combat or former combat medic that's been a paramedic for I think 26 years to teach.
Yeah, and I think we went through a bunch of that on that first episode. Right. You have like 20 different instructors or thereabout. Yeah.
So that's
that specialize in different things, which is awesome.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of other schools out there that do that, that have a broad spectrum of people coming from all over. You usually have one or two or three guys that are trying to run the whole show, and I felt like that with a small amount of people, you just can't really give people the knowledge that they deserve for the money they're paying. So that's when I created the Survival University. And was TSU, the Survival University, for a number of years when it was just me and my right-hand man now is Matt McFarland. And it was just me and him teaching and then bringing in the guest instructors. But it continued to grow. This year, TSU went nonprofit, so we're building that, which opens up a huge amount of doors for us. And we also acquired another nonprofit, and we changed the name to the Grit Nation. Grit meaning grow, reach, inspire, teach. While TSU is going to be kind of the primitive survival, or when you say survival, what people think of, that will be that side of the house. Grit is going to be more sustainable living, homesteading, and we're probably going to get into therapy, working with people with PTSD and stuff like that. So, and we're working on going international. We're actually setting up shop in South Africa, potentially New Zealand, Spain. We got contacts in all those different areas that we're really looking to really spread our wings. But
that's awesome, man. Congratulations, man. A lot has changed in a year for us and you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hate to say it, but a lot of people are struggling these days, but COVID really opened people's eyes up to how unstable our economy and our government and everything else is, and there's potentially nobody going to come help you if something goes wrong. So people are starting to look at being more self-reliant, whether it's being out in the backcountry or being in your own
foraging.
Home.
I don't know how many of my neighbors have fucking chickens right now.
Right.
And they're just getting eaten left and right by the bears.
Right.
So it's not really working out for them. But yeah, no, it's crazy. I've seen a lot of people start their own gardens and, just all kinds of different stuff. Now actually buying freezer chests and asking me about hunting, people that would never even think about it. Right. Or, hey, could I get some of that elk meat or deer meat from you? You know what I mean?
Like it's huge.
It is huge.
Not a lot of people, these are all skills that were, our ancestors used every day, all the time to survive. And that was all lost really with technology. I am a firm believer in using the technology that we have today. I'm not completely primitive, but
you can have the best of both worlds, though. There's a lot of lessons in that. I just recently read a book that was on my list, and I fell in love with it. I'm going to go back and listen to it again. I say read. I was listening to an audiobook. But it's called Tribe.
Okay.
And it's kind of like it takes modern culture and how we go to the grocery store and that sort of thing, and how we raise our kids, and how it was done tribally, whether it's modern tribes, because there are still some modern tribes in like Africa and some of these more remote places, third world countries. They still kind of have that tribal culture, even though they're not living in a teepee or living in a grass hut or something like that. But it's really crazy, the breakdown of family values and sustainability, and actually how much a workload was for a person, whether you're in a tribal environment or you're in this modern corporate environment, you know? So it's an awesome book. Totally recommend that.
I'll have to check it out.
You might have to look that up. I think it's called Tribe, and I can't remember the author's name, but we'll give that a shout out on here. But yeah, it's totally crazy that, to me, I guess growing up here and growing up in Colorado, and I didn't grow up with a whole lot of money, I spent my time in the outdoors and I had a blast doing it, right? More than going to an amusement park. Not that that wasn't fun, but I just loved hunting, fishing, camping, riding a dirt bike, riding a bicycle outside, growing up in the mountains, and I took a lot of that for granted until I started moving to like some of these more densely populated places like LA. And there was people that had never even been on a hike.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
And they had no idea of what I should take or what I should do. So I think that your school and what you do, and more importantly, I think one of the coolest things about you is you bring in all these other instructors. I feel like I had the hardest time. And I think when I first hit you up, I was like, are you like a full on like prepper guy or like prepping for the end of the world? And you're like, no, I'm more realistic, in the moment type thing of what's going on. And not that that's a bad thing to be prepared for something like that's catastrophic, right? But I find with like most survival schools and stuff, it's typically one or two guys, like you said, teaching it. And it's a lot about how badass they are at what they do and, that sort of thing. And
I try to
I feel like you're a little bit more humble and just,
I try to be. I mean, but yeah, I mean, going back to you growing up in the mountains, that's what I did. A lot of people think I'm ex-military. I was not military. I just learned what I did or what I do from living in the mountains. It was just a way of life for us, But I did pick up skills along the way, and I did go through a training to learn how to do some skills. I call them gold nuggets, things that are a better way to do something.
You can always improve no matter what your skill set is,
We're
right?
always learning. My guys, I'm trying to get them, I encourage them to go out and find other schools that they want to go learn from, train at, so they can bring that knowledge back to me and we can share it amongst each other and we can improve upon our classes. Anybody that thinks they know it all already, you want to stay away from that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Their arrogance or whatever is going to get you into trouble. So I try not to be that arrogant guy. I'm just continually learning, and there's always a newer or better or faster way to do something. And that's what we do, and that's what we try to teach people. And whether it's prepping, what do you need to have in your house, in your car, or whatever to keep you safe, or, what do you do when you're out hiking in the backcountry and something goes wrong? You should be prepared ahead of time. Make sure you have the right stuff in your backpack and your kit or whatever, right stuff with you. I don't care if you're going on a day hike or you're going on a 70-day hike. You should have, some core stuff. And then same stuff in your house. But it's, again,
car
it's just,
too. I mean, that was just I think we talked about that in the first episode is I just grew up like we always had a blanket and some candles and a knife and a flashlight or something in the car because if you run off the road in the mountains, you're going to be in the outdoors for a while, possibly.
Yeah. And then people rely, they go and they buy that stuff and they throw it in their car and they never use it. And then when something happens, they don't know what the heck to do. So that's why I'm here. I'm like, okay, you got your stuff. Now, do you know how to use it? And most people are like, no, we have no clue what to do. I'm like, okay, let me show you. And I try to give them a comfortable format. I have no judgment when people come out to camp. I accept that they're at a beginner level. And most of the times I don't realize I have to take a step back, and I force myself to take a step back to come down to their level, to remember what it's like not to know something. Yeah. So I try to make them comfortable and just put their mind at ease and not make it a stressful environment to teach.
Yeah. And I think that will have more effect on them if they do run into a problem is learning from somebody that's calm and collected.
No,
and
I
stuff
do
like
have
that.
classes where I induce stress, right?
Sure.
You know, you have to go through a stressful situation. I have the 50-day class I call the Advanced Woodsman class. I teach them, you know, within reason, everything I know for 43 days. And at the end of that 43 days, I take their gear away from them and they have to survive off the land. And it's, you know, it induces that stress. But during that first 43 days, I throw little curveballs at them to make them, you know, think and, you know, induce that stress so that they have to work it out and figure things out, you know.
Yeah. Like, oh, maybe you lost an arm or something, right?
Right.
Yeah. This is, Kayla's got that book pulled up. It's Sebastian Junger. How would you pronounce that?
Junger?
Junger?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's an awesome book, though. I'm going to go back, and I just finished with it like a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to go back and listen to it again. It's an incredible book.
Yeah, I think I'll have to check that out, too. Yeah.
Definitely. It would be a great read for you,
we have,
especially for what you do.
We work in, my guys, we're a tribe, you know, and then I have all my followers, we're a different tribe. You know, really, everybody's in a tribe nowadays. They may just not realize it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what this book encapsulates a little bit too. It makes you recognize, you know, like your family is basically your tribe. You're all living in the same house, you know, that sort of thing. So what have you been up to lately, man? I know that you've been in Costa Rica doing some stuff. I know you went through a little rough period there where you had some downtime, right?
Yeah. So we just did get back from Costa Rica in September, but I had to reschedule that because I was going to go to Costa Rica in April. So we'll fall back to March. All of March, I was feeling pretty ill. A headache that wouldn't go away, neck pain that wouldn't go away. I went to the doctor 3 times. I was getting tremors, hot flashes, cold chills, but never had a fever, never had any lung issues. So, you know, didn't think I had COVID. So I went to the doctor. Last time I was around the end of March, and just my head was just pounding. So I went to my doctor. She checked me out real quick, and she said, I don't know what's going on with you. Let's get you in to see a neurologist. I could hardly stand at the time. I had a ride. My ride brought me home, dropped me off at the house, laid down on the couch. I propped my door open so my dog Striker can get it out, and I laid down on the couch, fell asleep, and didn't wake up. So I guess about 3 days later, I had missed a business meeting. One of my guys noticed that...
You live at home by
I
yourself,
live at home
right?
by myself, yeah. So one of my guys noticed, he had pinged me a few times on Messenger. I hadn't replied back to him. So he got a hold of my VP and said, hey, have you heard from Jason? And she's like, no, but he missed a business meeting. He's probably just ignoring all of us. And Matt's like, no, that's not right. He hasn't talked to anybody, and he's missed this business meeting. That's not like Jason. So they contacted my ex and said, hey, can you go check on Jason? She's like, yeah, I'll go after work. And he's like, no, I think something's going wrong. Something's wrong. You should go as soon as possible. She's like, fine, I'll go on my lunch break. So she came over and found me non-responsive on the couch. This was after I'd been laying on the couch.
So this was 3 days you were?
Yeah. So I don't recall anything in that time frame that I'd been out. So who knows? But anyways, when she called 911, they came. They could barely find blood pressure and couldn't find a pulse. And I was, I guess, verbally responsive slightly. So, you know, they'd say something to me, like yell at me or whatever, and I'd like mumble something barely, I guess, but unconscious, I don't remember. But so they took me into the ER, obviously, and they at that time thought that I had spinal meningitis. They told everybody that I had a couple days to live. So they told anybody that wanted to come say their goodbyes to come in. They sat my son down with a chaplain, talked to him about what was about to happen. And me being the stubborn-ass survival guy that I am, I pushed through that 2 days. And they said, okay, well, he might make it, but when he wakes up, he's going to have severe brain damage. So a couple more days went by, I guess, and they said, okay, well, he's going to wake up, but he's probably going to have brain damage. So I was on life support. I had the oxygen tube and everything, and I guess they were feeding me through a tube. And it was pretty scary for everybody else. And
fuck, man, it threw me for a curveball because, I keep up with you on social, and we message back and forth occasionally just to check in. And, I saw you like doing all these trips and the schools that were going on and the stuff that you guys were doing. And the next thing I know, you're in the hospital. I was like, the fuck, but I didn't want to pry, because you were still in the hospital. And then you started showing like gnarly scars from a surgery and stuff. And so I didn't really know until you just told me now. So exactly.
After that 5 days, I woke up and I was just looked around, and my sister was sitting in the side of the room. I think she was crocheting or something. I was like, hey, what's up? And she was like, holy crap, you're awake. What they had determined was it wasn't spinal meningitis, that I somehow got a strep infection in my brain.
Wow.
They speculate where it came from. They're not really sure. They think that I somehow had a strep infection in my stomach, and it passed up to my sinuses through acid reflux, and then somehow it got into my brain. But
it's almost like staph infection in the brain or something, right? Because
I'm not really sure. Well, it's a strep infection, so I'm not sure. But I did have my blood was septic, which puts strain on my heart. But what happened was that infection caused the ventricles in my skull to swell shut. And your spinal fluid is constantly reproducing. So that spinal fluid had no place to go. The old spinal fluid had no place. So it was building pressure on my brain, which was causing the migraines and the headaches and the tremors and the hot flashes and the chills and all that. So what they ended up doing was drilling a hole in my skull and putting a tube into my brain to drain all that spinal fluid, the excess spinal fluid. And then just pumping me full of steroids and antibiotics to try and fight that. But I woke up and I think I'm normal.
Damn, dude. Well, I'm glad you're fucking here, man. 3 days. That could have been.
Yeah, I was unconscious
really
for
bad.
3 days, and then I guess I was having seizures and whatnot. So they induced in coma, and after 5 days, I woke up, and then I was in the ICU for roughly 30 days until that infection went down. When they pulled that tube out of my head after that 30 or so days, it paralyzed the left side of my face.
I remember seeing that.
So I couldn't, So they told me it would take up to 6 months for that to improve. And told me not to exercise.
You look great right now, by the way. So it looks like old Jason to me, man. Like nothing even happened to you. But.
Well, I'm stubborn, so I fought them on the brain thing, and I fought them on the face thing. And within, I think 3 weeks later, I had a massive migraine, and I heard a loud pop, and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and my face had returned back to normal. So I don't.
That's crazy. Like you heard a pop in your ears.
Yeah, kind of just in my head, Wow. So I feel like maybe some nerves popped over. I don't know. It was just weird. And I woke up and I felt fine.
It must be your badass switch or something.
And then I was a month at home by myself. I had a PICC line in my arm. So PICC line is basically an IV that runs through my arm straight into my heart. And I had to give myself IV medication directly into my heart twice a day for a month. And that was May. So all of May I was at home.
So you're just coming off of that, really, huh? Yeah.
Well, and then mid-June was time for classes to start. So I was like, there ain't no time for dying. So I my guys helped me out quite a bit. I had them really running most of the classes. June I was tired of sitting around. Threw all my gear together, headed up in the mountains, up to my camp up outside of Cripple Creek, and started teaching again.
Crazy, man. That's wild.
Right.
It's been a crazy couple of years, man. I've heard of several different things like that, and I don't know if we're just hypersensitive to it, but but it's just been strange, man. All kinds of strange shit happening since COVID, and I wonder, do you have any other like side effects from that, or do you feel 100% right now?
I would say I'm 95%. Sometimes I have troubles finding the right words. I think I do feel run down, physically run down a little bit. Now, when I first started out, I would start teaching, and I would probably make it to maybe 11 o'clock. for the first couple weeks, and then I was making it to. For a while, I started making it to noon, and then to 2, and then to 4. So it took me physically a little time to build up. But now I would say that I'm probably at 95% physically, and I can't think of anything mental. I guess
you sound great, man. I mean, did your doctors have you doing any sort of special physical therapy or anything for that? Brain
nothing
stuff?
at all.
No, really?
No. Yeah, no, I think they wanted me for a while to just not overstimulate my brain. Yeah. Just lay in a dark room and just slowly die. Well, I couldn't do that. I'm like, no, I'm not going to sit here and not stimulate myself. And I think, I'm a firm believer in positive attitude, positive energy. If you bring in what you put out. So I just kept, I'm wearing a shirt today. Keep moving forward. This is maybe you want to do a shout out to these guys. The Valhalla Project. They're for veteran suicide.
Oh yeah.
One of their big slogans is keep moving forward and
awesome.
So I think it kind of goes with what I've been through and what I do, and I support veteran suicide, or the prevention of it, or the awareness
it's a big
of
deal,
it.
Man.
So.
There's a ton of great organizations out there. There's so many right now that are doing all kinds of different stuff for it, like getting guys outside. And they found that outdoor therapy is a huge thing for that, because, these guys are so used to being kitted up and having an objective and a mission, right? And some guys have found that hunting kind of fills that void a little bit and just getting them out of there. But there's all kinds of great. We work with a bunch of foundations, and if these guys ever wanted to come on, I'd be more than happy to have them on too. Shout out to anybody that's helping with anything.
And there's a lot of groups out there that are helping them, and I think it's great. And I'm hoping that we will take an active role in giving vets something to do. And really, I think that's what they're lacking, what they're missing. They're missing that brotherhood. So I get a lot of vets come out to see me, even though I'm not a vet. I give them a place to go, something to do where they can sit in with a family, more or less. Most of my guys, all of my guys that work directly for me are vets. So I love supporting them, love giving them a family and pulling things in.
We're the same way here. I never served. I've been around a bunch of guys. I have a lot of friends now, but we've had a ton of guys on that are former military and shared their experiences with us. And actually a really good friend of mine, if you ever start having some serious brain stuff, or repercussions from this, I'd like you to introduce you to him. He was fucking awesome dude, Ranger for 20 years, built like Popeye. And he never got hurt in active duty. He's been on multiple deployments. But it was just from the training, and he was a breacher. So those concussion blasts going off just over and over again, it caused something in his brain. Like when I first met him, he used to walk with a cane, and he's totally surpassed all that through natural medicines and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and going through some therapy and working with the right doctors and changing his diet. Like you're talking about a guy that used to eat meat, now he's a complete vegetarian. So there's all this crazy shit that's happened to him. And he's still just a badass,
That's pretty cool.
Great guy.
But that brings up something talking about vets and whatnot. So one of the biggest reasons we went nonprofit is we are trying to work with a college or the Board of Education so we can actually become accredited. If we become accredited, I've already talked to the VA. They will approve our program, and we can accept the GI Bill, which gives we'll basically become a train-the-trainer type institute where we can train people to be in an outdoor job, potentially, whether people want to be hunting guides or river guides or do what I do or, whatever it may be. And we have such a broad spectrum of stuff that we do. For instance, I've got Jason Nauert, Jason the Butcher.
He's actually on my list. You got to put him in contact with us because I'd love to have him on the show.
Great guy. So he grew up in Woodland Park, which is just down the road from Cripple Creek. And his passion is animal processing, butchering. He's a big game hunter, but he loves the butchering portion of it. So he's master butcher or whatever you want to call it, but he travels the country and he trains the military on how to properly select healthy animals. That if they're overseas somewhere and they're buying off of the locals, how to buy the healthy animal and weed out the sick ones, and then how to humanely dispatch that animal, and then how to process it so they can feed as many people as they can and use the most of that animal so nothing goes to waste. So he comes and works with me.
That's awesome.
But he trains people. He actually trains, goes to colleges and culinary schools, and he trains chefs how to butcher animals, process them, cooking, everything, so we can start training people to be butchers or whatever. So that's our goal with TSU and the Grit Nation, is to be able to accept that GI Bill so that we can take people that are coming out of the military field and give them something to do.
Because college isn't for everybody, right?
No,
or like becoming
not.
a welder's not for everybody, right?
No. I mean, I went to college, but I didn't graduate. If we put it all together, I'd probably have an associate's degree. Big deal, really. But it wasn't for me. I worked IT for 18 years. Everybody's like, you did IT and you're not a military guy and now you're teaching survival training? That's a weird, oh yeah, but that's what I did as a kid. I just took what I loved and made a career out of it. But college is not for everybody, and you don't necessarily need to go to college to do something and be successful at it and do something you love. And on Facebook, I just put a post out there about something, if that thing that you've been wanting to do, that you've been dreaming about doing it, why wait? Do it now. Do it while you're young. Do it while you're thinking about it, because you don't know, and you don't know how successful it's going to be until you try it. Look at, I worked a IT job for 18 years that I hated every minute of it.
That was one of the things I wanted to bring up with you, because we vaguely touched on it on the last podcast, and it's crazy because it's like from one extreme to the other. Even though you're growing up in Colorado, like being an IT guy stuck at a desk, stuck at a cubicle, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, fuck this.
Right, exactly. I was like,
not to put it,
no,
but yeah.
No, it is. But I realized a need. There was a need for people to learn these skills. I had the skills, I had the knowledge, and I decided that I would improve upon my knowledge. So while I was working IT, I started building my business and my skill level and what I knew. And then about 5 years later, I saw the writing on the wall that we were going to get laid off. So I just balls to the wall on ramping up that business. And when walked in to work one day and all the big executive managers were in there, and they're like, we need you guys to go down to this room. And everybody's like, oh, I wonder what's going on. I'm like, I know exactly what's going on. Right. We're getting laid off. Yeah. I'm like, excited.
The plan is coming
Everybody
together.
is pretty upset about it. I'm like, man, no, you need to take this bull and grab it by the horns and go. And that's what I did. I just jumped on my business.
So you kind of had an exit plan prior to even getting laid off, and you knew the layoff was coming.
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
I think it's pretty obvious, and I think if everybody opens their eyes and looks, they know that there's something going on, and even if you don't, you should always have a fallback plan, I think. And that's really part of survival, really. If
survival can be in a cubicle too, right?
Yeah, survival can be in a cubicle, but it falls for urban and for your work field and for the outdoors. Every day is survival. You should treat it as such. That doesn't mean you have to run around with a tinfoil hat on your head and act all crazy. Right. Well, yeah, but well, maybe you should have a knife on you at all times. But
I agree.
But
my pocket knife goes everywhere. I travel with it. It's in my check bag, and as soon as I get that thing off the caral, it's in my pocket.
Yeah, I mean, so I always walk around with starter. Yeah. So, I always have an easier way to start. I'll do a little shout out to Wazoo Survival Gear. They'll let me for it. But they do wearable survival gear. So you don't have to be carrying a bunch of survival crap, and you don't have to act like or be this big crazy prepper that everybody thinks that we are. You just have to have, pay attention.
Sort of knowledge,
Pay attention to what's going on around you, and do know a little bit about how to get yourself out of a situation. Be safe.
For sure.
It doesn't take much. The more you know, the better, obviously. But start out with being aware.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing, get your head out of your phone a little bit and look around, see what's going on.
Right.
We were just talking about being in San Francisco prior to this and just avoiding a situation. You know what I mean? It's pretty easy to change the sidewalk, or change one side of the sidewalk to avoid somebody. Or if you have that sixth sense of like something might be going wrong, it probably is.
Yeah.
There's probably something screwy going on.
I know. All the training, the woodland training I have has made me a lot more aware of what happens and what's going around me in the city. They really walk hand in hand. Just because you're out playing in the woods doesn't mean you can't use those skills in the city. But yeah, I see weird stuff all the time, and there's a reason for that. So I'll walk around somebody or go around whatever, and something ends up happening in that area, whatever, for the day. And I don't know, just be careful.
It's crazy, yeah. Just pay attention. And my buddy Brian Clark that owns Bristol Cone down the road here. Great guy. We've had him on the podcast a couple times, and he brought up even when you're driving, just putting yourself in a good situation. When you pull up to a stoplight, you don't have to pull all the way up to the bumper of that car.
Right.
If you can see their back tires from your hood, you should be able to turn out and get away from any sort of threat. Or maybe there's a semi with no brakes barreling down I-70, right? And you're in bumper-to-bumper traffic. So
yeah. I mean,
leave yourself a little bit of room to get out,
Yeah. And I don't know, as a kid, they probably don't do it anymore these days, but I took driver's ed. Yeah. I don't know, and that's what they told you to do was stop before you could see the front tires. But it all boils down to training.
There's something about like 10 miles an hour too. Like it was a car length for every 10 miles an hour would give you enough time to stop before you actually rear-ended somebody.
Nobody does that.
And this was like in a 1970s Lincoln, it was like a boat, literally.
Yeah. But yeah, it all boils down to training, whether you're reading a book or watching a video or doing hands-on training or whatever it is, it prepares you for everything that happens in life.
So you threw your middle finger up to the IT world,
I did.
Right?
Yep.
And you knew it was coming. Why survival? Why'd you start the school and the path that you took with it too? It's a different approach than most.
Well, when I started out, it was on the prepper side of the house. I was selling gear to people because a lot of people didn't even know what to put in their survival kits or bug out bags. And the stuff that was out on the internet was junk. So I wanted to create a better product. So that's what I did is I created a better survival kit, what I thought was a better survival kit. But I really didn't like being the gear salesman. I just didn't enjoy it whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And there was so much competition, huge amount of competition. So I was like, what? Really, the people drew it out of me and showed me what they needed and what they wanted. Sure. They've got the gear. How do you use it? So that's the way I went. And it's just, I guess I have a passion for teaching. I feel comfortable with it. People feel comfortable with me. And it's just, I enjoy doing it. So I'm just, balls to the
being
wall,
around
going
people in person too. That's why I enjoy doing
yeah.
these in-person podcasts
Absolutely.
more than I do a virtually one or something like that, or just putting content out there. Just sitting here and having a conversation, learning something, right, is key to me.
Yeah, so. And I love seeing that light come on in people's eyes. The light bulb come on. They're down and they're upset because they can't get something to work, and I make them work at it. I'm like, don't give up, don't give up, don't give up. And then all of a sudden they get it, and it's like the best thing that ever happened to them in their life. And I'm there at that moment, and I'm the one that pushed them through that. It's a feel good. It's a huge feel good for me. So, why wouldn't I want to keep doing it? And then I'm bringing in other people that want to teach. So I'm teaching them how, and, they're down on themselves for whatever reason, but now I'm giving them a reason to move forward, to move on, and they're helping other people. So now I'm allowing two different sets of people to come up and to feel better about themselves, the student and the new teacher and the new instructor. And it's great. And I
just having a skill set too for me, like the little bit, and I need to expand mine vastly for sure. Like I have a whole list of stuff that I want to go do. I have a list of classes I want to come take with you. I just haven't done it. Time
is everybody's issue.
But just having that in the back of your mind, it's a surreal type of comfortability. I mean, it's sometimes it can be a false sense of safety, right? Like people go out and buy these Garmin things like I have that has the SOS button on it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean if you hit that, they're coming right away.
No, they're
right?
not.
Yeah. So, you do have to know your way around what you're doing. But I think just having that in the back of your mind, especially if you got kids or something like I do, that's the whole reason. I'm not so much worried about myself, which I should be, because typically when I'm in the woods by myself, I have sharp objects with me, broadheads, a knife.
Having the stuff and knowing how to use it is key. So during our wilderness first responder class, I'm not going to remember the numbers right off the top of my head, but the study shows that 50% of people that get lost in the woods on day one don't make it home.
Really?
50%. That's big numbers.
That's a huge number.
And then after day two, if you can make it past day two, then it's like 29%, and then it drops down to like 13%. And then after day 4, people that can last 4 days can damn near last indefinitely. So if you get the training to make it so you have the knowledge to last 4 days, you have like a 90% success rate. So that my basic classes pushes you to 4 days. Which,
sure.
Yeah, and then that advanced class that I run, the 50-day class, I have people out there for a week, and they struggle. Don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but I would say they're thriving way more than probably 95% of the population out there. So I'm trying to teach people to push past day 1, push past day 2, push past day 3, get to day 4 and day 5, and by that time, people are looking for you.
Right.
If you're in a search and rescue situation, and you know what to do to get found.
No, that's key. And I urge anybody that, even if you're just recreating around here in the backcountry, whether you're a mountain biker, whether you have one of these GPS deals, an SOS device, it's always good to have a backup plan beyond that. Like know how to use a compass, know how to navigate with a map. Your phone may be dead.
And be prepared to spend the night.
Exactly.
Always be prepared to spend the night. And that doesn't mean you have to carry a tent and a sleeping bag and all that. With probably 5 pounds of gear, you could have the ability to spend the night. Sure. You're not going to be comfortable. You're probably not going to be happy, but you're going to wake up the next morning alive.
And what would you have for that 5 pounds of gear? If it
So in general, we call them the 5 C's. A lot of the instructors out here teach this. The 5 C's are survival. So number 1 for me always is cutting tool. So C for cutting tool. So obviously that's your knife. Number 2 is combustible. So something to start a fire. Number 3 is cover. So some sort of shelter. That can be a tarp, be a poncho, something like that.
Those little space blankets are pretty badass.
They're okay. I would probably go with some sort of rain poncho, something that you can string up between a couple trees and make a nice solid,
bit more durable.
Yeah. So the thing about those space blankets, when you think of blanket, what do you do with that when you have a blanket?
I would be wrapping that around me.
Right, exactly. So you wrap that blanket around you. With a space blanket, if you wrap it around you, it loses its purpose. It's supposed to reflect heat past you. So what you want is you actually hold that space blanket off your body a little bit, so you create dead air space, and it reflects heat towards you.
So it's bouncing it back. That makes sense.
So most people are going to wrap it around like the blanket, and they're just going to lose heat through convection, the air passing past their body. So they work okay if you use them properly, and they also can cause you to sweat, which will cool you down. Right. So they're okay if you use them properly, but not the best thing. So the 4th item is cordage, rope. So I usually carry like 50 foot of paracord. Mm-hmm. I can turn 50 feet for inside a paracord or 7 additional strands. So now I've got 7 times 50. So.
Right.
It's a lot. I don't math right now.
So if you cut that open, there's little white twines inside of it, right? It's and they call it 550 cord because it's rated for 550 pounds.
Yeah, as a whole, it'll carry 550 pounds.
It's super strong. If you've never messed with it, and then if you tie a knot in it, good luck getting it out. I don't care what kind of knot it is. It takes a little bit of work, but yeah, no, that stuff's awesome, man.
And the 5th item before we move on is the container. So I carry a metal container, so I have the ability to boil water and purify it. And I'm also carrying a little heater so I can boil water, put the lid on that, make sure it doesn't leak. And now I can cuddle up next to it, wrap it in a sock or a t-shirt or whatever, and I can hold it against my body, and I can keep warm throughout the night. So those 5 C's, real quick again: cutting tool, combustible, container, cordage, and cover.
It makes so much sense, man.
5 pounds maybe.
Yeah.
You should have that with you at all times when you go out in the backcountry, whether it's a walk around a park that's kind of nearby. I've done a lot of case studies where people I'm going to just go out on a day hike. I'm carrying my granola bar and my water bottle, and they go out and something happens. They break a leg. They fall in some ravine nearby where people don't see them, and they end up having to spend the night. And they either, die out there that night from hypothermia.
Weather can come in super quick too, yeah.
So it doesn't take much gear. Take the stuff with you. It's not a lot. And that's what we do, is we teach people how to just use those 5 items just to get through the night, or 2 nights or 3 nights.
You guys also do desert survival, jungle survival. So are those, are there different rules that apply to where your climate?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, there's still the same core skills and the same core, I'll just stick with skills. But there are some variations. The flora and the fauna changes. Some techniques change. Desert, you just want to kind of hunker down in the middle of the day and stay out of the sun so you don't dehydrate. And your primary goal is to find water and get the hell out of the desert, That's
always my goal when I'm in the desert, whether I'm there in comfort or not.
Yeah. The jungle, you're going to get wet. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So you're not necessarily worried about, the rain so much. You're worried about insects and
there's a lot of shit in the jungle.
Yeah, there's a lot of
right?
Yeah. So we just, like I said, we got back from Costa Rica in September. That's the rainy season. To be honest with you, it's pretty miserable. Do you take
students down there with you, or what does that entail?
So we'll probably only do it in April from now on during their prime season, so that it's not so miserable when we're down there. I mean, good training is training in misery, but not everybody wants to do that. So anyways, we fly into Costa Rica. We fly into San Jose, Costa Rica. We spend the night there, and then we drive, I think, 4 or 5 hours to I can't remember the town, but it's a little river town. We jump on a boat, almost like a speedboat, whatever. It's got a canopy on it, but we take the boat down the river for about an hour to the bay, and we go to another small town, jump off the boat, and drive up into the jungle for about 30 minutes or so, and we stay at a little a bungalow where we stay there for 3 or 4 days, and we teach the skills, how to use a machete, how to create fire in the jungle, how to make
which can be difficult because everything's wet.
Yeah, right.
The wood's probably wet.
It's pretty tough. But we're in a kind of a comfortable environment. We're out away from town a little ways. Where the bungalows we stay in are kind of open, but they have like a mesh around them, so you don't have to worry about bugs too much. But they do get in. But you can hang up your hammocks and you sleep inside these bungalows in this hammock. And the guys cook food for you, so everything's catered for you the whole time. And it's like home cooked meals. It's probably some of the best food I've ever had in the history of ever. These 2 guys cook them on this little gas grill in this little tiny kitchen, and they just cook amazing meals. But anyways, after we teach you some skills, then we go out into the jungle and spend a night or 2 out there. Build a jungle survival shelter and just shrimp traps and catch food out there, and we eat whatever we can find. And then we come back. We spend the night.
Are insects on the menu? I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll always. I mean, if people want to eat insects, it's not a forced thing.
Right.
We don't make people, but it's a nice thing to do because it gets you over that mental barrier. And that's usually where people fail and they struggle and they end up dying, is because they can't get past that mental barrier. So yeah, if somebody wants to eat a bug, we'll eat a bug.
Do you have a favorite?
No. They all taste like bugs.
Yeah, I've eaten ants before, but
well,
I think they were covered in chocolate or something.
Okay, if we're talking about the United States, ants are probably my favorite, and then we're going to go with grasshoppers or crickets. Ants are usually kind of citrusy. And grasshoppers, if you cook them, you have to cook grasshoppers or crickets. Otherwise, you could potentially get tapeworm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, only
that's good to know.
Yeah, only insects that are safe to eat without cooking are ants, termites, and their larvae. Anything else needs to be cooked.
Really?
And it doesn't need to be cooked long, but I cook them pretty well. And crickets, grasshoppers end up tasting like
Mix
popcorn.
them in with your rice.
Yeah. But yeah, after in the jungle, after we get out of the jungle, we get back on a boat and we go down the coast a little bit, and then we do some coastal survival for 3 days, catching fish and crabs. And
now, is that a beach environment?
Yeah, it's a beast.
Oh,
awesome. Yeah. So it is fun. It's your jungle survival, coastal survival, and then we head back to San Jose and fly home. We are working on Arizona. We're getting ready to set up in Arizona. I got to go down there and actually talk to a guy about. He's got a school down there, and I don't think he's doing too well. It's hard. This is a hard niche to get into. People have to trust you, and I've been working at it 11 years, so I've put my face out there a lot. I contacted news media, and I've been on the German channel, travel channel, the Spanish channel. I've been on local media a whole bunch. I've been with you. This is the second time in the newspapers. I throw my face out all over social media and put my personality out there. I'm not selling survival classes. I'm selling myself. Sure. I want people to feel comfortable with me. I'm just a normal dude, really. I've worked corporate America for 18 years. So, people can associate with me really well, really easily. And I grew up around vets, so I kind of mesh with them too. They feel that the military vibe for me, sort of, even though I'm not military. But I don't, when they sit down with me, they're like, you look military, you kind of act sometimes military, but you're not military. I'm like, yeah, it's just because I grew up around, my dad was a vet, all his friends were vets. But I'm just kind of low-key chill. But anyways, we're working on setting up Arizona. We're actually looking at Michigan. We're going to set up a shop in Michigan and Tennessee. Those are our immediate places in the U.S. And then, like I said earlier, we're going to go to South Africa. We're looking to hopefully take my crew down to South Africa next year and do kind of a scouting trip. And we have contacts down there, so it's not like we're just going in blind. We got contacts down there that we know. My vice president of TSU is actually from South Africa, so she knows the area. She knows the people.
Have you been there before?
I have not, so I'm pretty excited.
Awesome, it's one of my favorite spots in the world. That is God's country.
Yeah, I'm excited. But we're looking at Kilimanjaro and that's what
Cape Town's a great city too.
I'm excited. I'm excited to go down there. I think there's going to be a lot to do, and what we're looking to do is actually do more sustainable living. We have a place that we can do sustainable living classes down there, but we're also looking to do safari trips. So we will have guides that take us on the safari trips and protect us. We'll have the rangers that protect us from whatever animals are out there. But from point A to point B, we're actually teaching survival techniques. So not only are you walking around going, oh, look at all the pretty stuff, you're learning something along the way. So that's what me and my crew are going to be there for. And we've got guys down there that we will learn some additional techniques. Always learning. I don't claim to know everything.
No, that's great, man. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Sounds like you're growing at a rapid pace right now. So we're burning through the time right now. Yeah, it's been an hour. No, wow. I want to keep going. Do you have any time constraints? Or can we keep going for a little bit?
Yeah, as long as you want.
Awesome, dude. All right. I'm stoked to have you in here. Wilderness first responders. I'm going to come take this course from you. I even want to take it a step further eventually at some point and go for that paramedics license. And just for personal stuff, I don't know that I'll ever be there, but I feel like the wilderness first responder is a great place to start.
Love that class.
I'm watching you guys online. I'm jealous every time it pops up in the back of my head, like, why the fuck am I not doing this? So I am going to set it up with you. I'm going to talk to you off the air after this a little bit. But I've noticed that you guys have been training with Flight for Life too, like how to land a helicopter in, a meadow or a field to get that fast response, what to do, what not to do. Can we dive into what are the most common occurrences that you guys are training for or that you cover in that class of how to treat people? And then, just some of the basics on that class.
So Mark is my instructor for that class. Mark DeJong, he's with Off-Grid Medic, and I bring him in from South Carolina, Georgia. You talk to anybody that's in the paramedic, EMT, or nurse, anybody that works in the ER, they're going to talk about the golden hour. That's the hour from the time that somebody's injured till, I can't explain it the best as well as I can, but the golden hour is you have an hour basically to save their life. With anything past that hour, it's harder to get to keep them alive. Right? The results aren't as good. So you're working in that golden hour, whether you're stopping a bleed or fixing a broken bone, or maybe they have a head injury or whatever their injury is. You've got that hour time frame, and then usually in a closer environment where they're not too far out of the city, the paramedics or EMTs have made it to you in that time, and then they can get them to the ER. If you can stabilize a person within that golden hour, they have a very high chance of living. So wilderness first responder teaches you what to do during that golden hour. It's, taking vital signs, doing, all the things. I could sit here and talk to you for hours about the things that you need to do, but you're learning those basic medical skills to stabilize a person until definitive care can arrive, or somebody to get them to definitive care. So we teach them how to stabilize, and then we work with Flight for Life, which just an awesome group of people. Awesome, man, cool. Yeah. So they have,
that was my childhood dream, was to be a pilot for them, and then
it gives me goosebumps just
Metallica
thinking about
came along.
Because yeah, right. We can play Metallica to the helicopter coming in.
Sure.
But yeah, those guys and gals, I should say, there's 3 of them in the helicopter. You got your pilot, you got your flight nurse, and your flight paramedic. And the flight paramedic and the flight nurse have 2 different jobs. But yeah, they come in, they'll circle the area, determine the best place for them to land. Fortunately, at my camp, they can land about 50 feet from my tent, which is pretty freaking cool. Awesome. But you might, you were talking about having that Garmin or whatever, you hit the SOS button. Mm-hmm. That does not call in a helicopter. That's not what's going to happen. Right. They're going to send a ground team in to you first to make sure that, it's real. You're there, you have an injury, and that there's a potential place to evacuate you. And then that ground team will move you to a location they think the helicopter will land. Helicopter comes in, they circle the area. If they don't like that area, they might set that helicopter down a mile from you and say, I'm not setting down where you're at. You're going to need to go over this mountaintop or whatever it is, over this terrain to get to us over here. And now you have to transport them from...
There's so many variables with it too, like wind and updrafts and downdrafts. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But I've seen them do some pretty cool stuff. They've landed at my camp, and then we have something, I probably can't talk too much about it, but we did a little thing with the Weather Channel where we brought Flight for Life in and did a mock rescue scenario. So that's coming out here pretty soon. But they landed in I thought it was a pretty crazy area.
Let us know when it comes out, because we'll share it. So I'm sure everybody will want to see that too.
So yeah, I think it's coming out in late November and December. But yeah, I share everything I do out on the Facebook when I'm allowed to.
We'll re-share it for you too. So.
But yeah, Flight for Life, those guys are just that whole crew is just amazing, and they work for a lot of hours to get to where they're at. And one of my nurses, when I was in the hospital, was there to get his nursing degree or whatever, so he could be a flight nurse, which thought was pretty freaking cool. But
that is cool.
Yeah.
Full circle then,
right? Huh? Yeah, but yeah, Flight for Life is.
So, do they use your school as a bit of a training for themselves too, or is that?
So, Flight for Life is also a nonprofit. Okay. So they use that as their PR. So that they love to come out and work with people and teach them, and you do have to go through some channels, and you have to. So I work with Flight for Life, and then we use the Emergency Management Agency, EMA. So they're the ones that come in if there's a big natural disaster. They go in and they set up the crews, and they figure out where the headquarters is, and they direct everybody on what they're supposed to be doing and blah, blah, blah. But so I work with them. They're basically the ground team. They give us the radios. So with the radios, we can call in the helicopter and tell them where they're wanting to land. And so anytime the Flight for Life comes out, EMA is on the ground with us. And then Mark, being a paramedic, he knows their talk. And we've just set up a good relationship with all those teams. So anytime we call, they're like, what time you want us to be there? Awesome. So it's taken us all a number of years to get to this level. But that being said, if you wanted Flight for Life to come out to a presentation that you have, you could probably get them to do it. You just need to get a hold of them and talk to them and figure out what their system is and how they want to work. You to work through it.
That's great. I'll never forget what spurred me to want to be a helicopter pilot when I was a kid is they landed at my elementary school and did like a whole demo or something. Got us, let us sit in the helicopter and all that sort of stuff, which was super cool. And it stuck with me for life. Yeah.
I'm going to try to talk them into one of these days to actually take me up in there. But
helicopter rides are the best, man. So.
Yeah, it'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm definitely going to come do that with you guys. Now, are you guys, is that a different class? Is that like above and beyond wilderness first responder, or is that part of that class?
No, we bring them in for the wilderness first responder. So they just come in for a day. And it all depends. I mean, they schedule it with us. We schedule it out a long time in advance. If they're inbound and something happens, some accident, so they need to go to something, then they call them off. We're not priority, obviously. Somebody's life is in danger. That's priority. Absolutely. But we've worked it into our actual program, so it's part great. Of the training.
And if people want to take your course, if they travel in, where are they staying? Or do you stay at the camp, or how does that?
Yeah, so I encourage people to stay at the camp. So I have roughly 70 acres. That's another thing that happened. So when I first started here, I had 10 acres, and then this year I acquired 55 some odd more. Great. So now we've expanded a little bit. But I try to get them to stay at camp. If they have a tent, they can stay at tent. Basically, they're car camping for the basic and the intermediate camp classes. I have military tents, wall tents that they can stay in with wood-burning stoves and cots, so they can stay in those wall tents if they don't have a tent of their own, or they can stay in their vehicles if they got a camper or whatever. They got room to park and stay in vehicles. If they're not comfortable with any of it, Cripple Creek is 15 minutes away.
And that's a multiple day course, right? It's not like just come in for an hour or something.
No, pretty much everything that I run is multiple day course. The only ones that are not are some of the plant walks. So like Cattail Bob comes in, does a wild plant walk. Mushroom Mike Essam comes in and does, I forget what class he teaches. Mushrooms.
Yeah. Cool shit.
But
that's awesome. And then are you guys covering like, us coming into the winter season and some of the most common things that I think that can happen to people, especially if you're out hiking, or maybe you just accidentally get wet while you're outside, which is pretty common, especially if it's snowing and it's, sub-zero temperatures, or maybe it's just below freezing. Hypothermia is a major killer in the outdoors, right? And lightning strikes, I think, those are like the top two.
Yeah, so exposure to the elements is the biggest killer, man. So knowing what to do when you're freezing and what to do when the lightning
or to take care of somebody in that situation, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of an ethical issue for some people, but if you come across somebody on the trail and they're down, unconscious, whatever, and they need CPR, if you don't know what's going on with them, if you start CPR, you're supposed to not stop, right?
Yeah.
So, or you could potentially be held liable for administering care and not following
really?
Through. That's probably for people like me that are certified and are supposed to know what we're doing. But CPR is usually kind of frowned upon in the backcountry unless you physically see that person go down.
Well, it's crazy. Like if you've ever I have CPR certification for multiple years. And I think it was just growing up with firefighter families and stuff like that. It was like one of those things you were encouraged to do. And I think for a city environment, it's ideal, right?
Right.
Because you're probably going to have a 5-minute response to any sort of emergency, you hope, if you're in an inner city, if you're in the mountains. it's going to be a little bit less, right? And I'm talking about being in a subdivision. But if you're in the backcountry,
It can be hours.
to do CPR on somebody for hours with just your mouth, you're going to be wiped out if you
about
can even
10 minutes,
continue it.
maybe 10 minutes. But the reason I brought up CPR is if a potential lightning strike is probably the only time you may administer CPR in the backcountry, because you have a good chance of bringing that person out of, whatever issue that they're in, and starting their heart back up, getting them to breathe again. But, so CPR is a difficult thing in the backcountry. We still teach it. It's still part of that wilderness first responder class. But, we were talking about lightning. So
yeah. No, that's huge, especially if you're above tree line.
Yeah, right.
I've had some close calls where I'm like,
I mean, we got all the 14ers here.
Yeah, in the fall, especially the elk are high.
Right. Yeah,
storm
hunting.
moves in. It's normally wet. You're carrying around metal objects. So.
Yeah, but yeah, we do teach winter classes. There's nothing on the calendar at the moment. Hutch, Aaron Hutchings is my guy that primarily I'm going to have teaching the survival class or the winter survival classes anymore. I'm just waiting for his schedule to free up or figure out his schedule. But yeah, we're going to be doing winter survival training. We don't do avalanche training at the moment. I've taken an AVI class, but just because I've taken an AVI class, I'm not qualified enough to do it. There's
a lot that goes into that.
There's
too.
So
different
much
levels of certification.
In Colorado, there's a lot of competition, so I just kind of stay out of that. But we might at some point. But what we're going to do is teach you what gear to bring, how to properly maintain it, and how to use it in an emergency, or just how to use it so you don't get into an emergency.
So we covered lightning a little bit. Hypothermia. What are some of the best things you can do right off the bat if you have no wilderness first responder experience? What are some things that you can do to survive?
If we're going to talk about just something to do right off the bat is layering. Wear the proper clothing to begin with. You should have your underlayer, your insulating layer, and your outer layer, and you should be taking off and putting on layers as needed. You really, when you're out there, you don't want to sweat. So if you're starting to sweat, you're wearing too much clothes. Take off. Take something off. It's going to potentially save your life. But start off with the proper clothing, the proper gloves, hats, boots, the whole thing. Even if it's too hot to wear it, put it in your backpack or whatever. But really, come to hypothermia, I guess one big thing is go with a buddy system. You should go out with two people and pay attention to each other. Call it the mumbles and the stumbles and the grumbles. So if anybody is acting weird, can't walk straight, is talking funny, there's something wrong with them. Their mental capacity is going down. And it's probably because they're cold and their body is shutting down. What I try to do, what you can do is, one of the first things you lose is fine motor function, meaning you can't move your fingers or your toes as well. So if you have a buddy that you think, hey, are you all right? If they respond to you, try to get them to touch their pinky to their thumb. If they can't do that, there's something wrong. So you need to warm them up as quickly as possible. And we're just talking about general hypothermia. We're not talking about frostbite.
It's crazy because I've been close to having it, if not having it before. And I was uncontrollably shivering. I was talking gibberish, basically, not gibberish, but like not making sense.
Right.
But I never felt cold.
Right. Well,
like I remember it. Like I never felt cold. I was like, why am I shivering? Why is my body shaking? And I just had no idea.
And shaking is your body's natural defense. If you're cold and you shivering and nothing changes and then you stop shivering, you're in trouble.
Right.
So best thing to do, start a fire, warm up, put blankets around you, whatever.
If you have wet clothes on, get them off, right? That was always something.
Yeah. I mean, do the best you can. I mean, you need to have something dry to change into.
Sure.
But, wet clothes aren't doing you any good. Start a fire. If all you have is wet clothes, start a fire, get it going. It's going to be difficult. That's why I see a lot of people. I mean, the ferro rod that I have around my neck is small. This is my emergency fire starter. Typically, the ferro rod, the magnesium fire starter that I have, is 6 inches long. It's a half inch in diameter. That's because if my hands are cold, I'm not going to be able to hang on to something small. So I've got a very large ferro rod. I don't like lighters because they don't work in high winds, they don't work in extremely cold temperatures, and they don't work at elevation, high elevations potentially. and it's really hard to use a lighter. So my go-to is that big ferro rod.
Yeah. Not to mention magnesium will burn underwater, right?
Yeah,
basically.
And it burns at like 5,600
That's crazy.
degrees.
It's like a white light.
No, it's not easy. I have to train people how to use these things. But yeah, just be able to start a fire and have some way to warm up, whether it be a blanket or whatever. So go out there at least a little prepared for the winter.
Yeah.
Cold
I
weather.
think that's the biggest thing is knowing before you go, right?
Yep.
Being prepared.
Yep.
Knowing what to do. And that's why I encourage anybody to go take your classes too, man. So
Thanks.
be prepared, especially if you have kids or something like I do. I mean, that's the whole reason why I want to come take the wilderness first responder. And not to mention that, I go up elk hunting with my uncles. We're all getting up there in age now, so anything could happen, you know.
Right. Well,
especially when you're exerting a lot of energy.
Nice thing about that wilderness first responder class too is he'll go into statistics of people that aren't really prepared in the backcountry when they think they are.
Sure.
And hunters are usually high on the list.
Oh yeah.
I've got a gun. I'm good.
You're right.
Maybe not. You know.
I'd like to see the statistics on how many hunters cut themselves with their own or shoot themselves or something like that. Because, I mean, it is a concern when you're skinning something or something like that.
The biggest thing with hunters is they get lost because most people in the backcountry are following a trail, right?
Sure.
Hunters go off trail. And it's easy to get turned around out there. And not everybody brings a map and compass. Not everybody knows how to use the map and compass. Not everybody has the tools, or they bring that Garmin with them and something happens to that Garmin and they're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Navigation's huge.
Yeah, it is giant. Yeah, and I do have, on top of that, Wolfer, we do teach an advanced, I've got a ranger, Army Ranger that taught navigation at Ranger School that comes in and teaches navigation over a 5-day class.
Should add that to my bucket list.
Right,
too.
yeah. You're not going to learn that in a department store, at an outdoor store, in their back rooms on how to properly do navigation. I won't say their name,
and even if you do use a compass, I mean, there's certain things that were brought to my attention. Some of my hunting gear has magnets in it, and it'll throw a compass off and shit like that.
There's so much stuff that'll throw it off. But
there's all kinds of different
and then there's
stuff.
declination and, you know, the Earth's natural gravitation pull. But yeah, wilderness first responder class is probably my favorite one, and then navigation is my second favorite. I'm not even talking about my classes, but you know.
Well, you got a ton of classes too, and a ton of people that teach them. And dude, I got to thank you too for introducing us to some of those people. Like we've had Donnie Dust on.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and I didn't know about Donnie before talking to you.
Donnie's phenomenal.
Yeah, awesome guy. He actually made these arrowheads.
I was looking at those. I was like, man, those look kind of like what
Donnie
does.
knocked those out, and he was gracious enough to give us I hope somebody didn't steal it, but he gave us what do they call it? It's like a pine tar. And moose dung and like something else. Like,
did you eat it? It was good, wasn't it? No. The pine pitch.
That hard to chew.
Glue.
Yeah, the glue.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. So, but yeah, I want to thank you for that. Well, dude, we've done about an hour and a half now. You want to get out of here? What do you think?
Whatever.
Anything else you want? Let's talk about what you got coming up. What classes you got coming up, and how to get a hold of you if somebody wants to take a class.
So my webpage is thesurvivaluniversity.com. So you can search for Colorado Survival. I'm top on the list on Google. Or you can, Colorado Survival, Colorado Mountain Man Survival was my original business. That's what I run under, is Colorado Mountain Man Survival. TSU, the Survival University, is the umbrella that covers everybody that comes in and works for me. So the survivaluniversity.com is the webpage. I'm just now starting to put classes out on the calendar for next year. I've got everything that happens during the 50-day class is out there.
That's right. I forgot. You do a 50-day class, which is
so the 50-day is all my little classes smashed together. So you don't have to take the entire 50 days if you want. You can take bite-sized pieces of that 50 days. The 50 days is for those people that want to come out and totally immerse themselves and get the feeling of it all. It's an experience over top just learning the skills.
Probably don't want to go back to your normal life after that.
Everybody that's come out there and taken a class and graduated has said that it has changed their life, changed the way they viewed their life, and realized a lot of the stuff that they thought was important before is no longer important to them anymore, and they have a lot less stress in their life.
Yeah.
They can just sit back and breathe
Makes
and be like,
sense,
this
man.
is not important.
Whenever I leave elk camp, I'm depressed.
Right?
It's like,
Yeah, and
God,
they
I
all
just
miss
spent
it.
2 weeks here,
They
It's
miss
like,
it, and they come back up and visit me. I'm like, man, I beat the crap out of you for 50 days. Why do you want to come visit me? And they're like, this is awesome. But yeah.
What's the attrition rate there? I mean, do you have a lot of dropouts?
No,
or?
not really.
Yeah.
Not really. I think what happens is most people psych themselves out mentally. They're like, I got to go through this 7-day challenge at the end. That's scary, And
Sure.
I'm like, I'm trying to build them up mentally. You're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. I'm teaching you everything you need to know. Just fall back to what I taught you, and you'll be okay. And you're not going to die in 7 days. Might suck if you don't get any food, but it's not like I just drop them out there and leave them. I'm there. I'm watching over them, and I make sure, within reason. It's the wilderness. There's only so many safety precautions I can take. But, just don't psych yourself out. And that, I really believe survival is 90% mental and 10% skill. If you've got the drive, you're going to make it through it. And I feel like my mentality, my drive, my want to push forward under whatever circumstances is what got me through my hospital stay. So survival is 90% mental. Don't psych yourself out. Know some skills, you'll be all right. But we're probably going to go back to Costa Rica in April.
Awesome.
Probably the first 2 weeks of April. That's like a 12-day class.
What a great
that we're
country,
down
man.
there.
So cool to visit there,
We're going to be putting some winter stuff on the board here. Really, winter classes in Colorado, to be honest with you, aren't really that great until spring. That's when we get our heavy snowstorms.
I know, because like in December, we can have 50-degree days and shit.
So we'll probably do one in February. It's usually really cold in February, and we'll have maybe a foot or snow. And it just sucks because it's so cold. It'll be like 20 below at 4 o'clock in the morning. But it's a good time to train, and we have all those safety precautions. We have the tents and everything, so it's not like you're going to freeze to death out there. And then we will usually run another one in mid-March sometime.
It's a good month.
That's when we're getting hammered with snow, the heavy, wet snow. So we can build bigger Quonset huts, survival shelters, snow caves, stuff like that. So those are coming up. And then I think sometime in the end of March, we're actually trying to hopefully go down to South Africa. So we might not, other than the winter class, we may not do anything in March. And then April, we're going to start kicking up and start doing, little classes here and there. And then come May, it's going to be balls to the wall. June, July, and August are packed full of classes. I don't have them all up there already. I'm always trying to work with guest instructors coming in, always seeing if I can get new people coming in. This year I've got Philip Leibel coming out of Texas, coming up is primitive wilderness survival.
Okay.
Philip, I'm sorry if I screwed that up, but everybody that's in my little bubble knows who Philip is. But yeah, he I think he's in Chico, Texas. He runs a school down there.
Chico, Texas. Huh?
Yeah,
I don't even know where that's at.
I could be saying that wrong, but he's really great at primitive hunting skills. So he does flint knapping, he does bow making, archery, makes arrows. He's really great at the hand drill, friction fire. So I'm coming up, I'm bringing him up to run those primitive tools. I had Donnie Dust do it in the past, but Donnie's just slammed these days.
He's so busy. He's a rock star, man. I love that guy though, man. Like, talk about assault of the earth, just a good dude.
Oh yeah,
another veteran, right? Like, and just a badass.
He just gives. I just love the energy that guy has.
Just having him around is great.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance to take a class with Donnie, highly recommend it.
Shout out to Donnie for sure.
No kidding. So I'm bringing in Philip. We've got a few other people that I'm going to try to get my hooks in. Maybe some hide tanning.
That would be cool.
We can do it, but we're not at this other person's level. I won't say her name because I don't know if she's going to come in or not. And then, maybe some pottery classes, a lot of different things that we want to add to our curriculum. What's just nice, I feel, about what I do with the Survival University is normally you would have to travel all over the country to go find these individual people. And I try to pull them here into one location, if only for a day, to teach them, a highly skilled class from a highly skilled person if they, it might
and
cost.
The better part for me is it's right down the road.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and Colorado's a great place to visit. I mean, just ask anybody. Everybody's coming here right now.
I mean, yeah, we could go run these in Kansas, but who wants to go visit Kansas? Yeah, we're up in the mountains, so we got beautiful scenery up there and a nice camp spot, and it's kind of if you want to go play the one-armed bandit, you can go to Cripple Creek real quick and lose some money and do some gambling, and it's 15 minutes down the road. But yeah, I love it here, and having the ability to pull in these people is great. And I'm pretty. You said it earlier. I'm pretty humble, and I don't.
You're very humble.
I don't really realize it, but there's Rabbit Stick. Have you ever heard of Rabbit Stick? It's a big gathering.
Okay.
Of people that do what I do.
Is there something else like the Sunshine Tribe or something, or the Sun Festival?
There's a bunch of
like
different
that?
ones. There's Rabbit Stick. There's Winter Count. There's Over the River or something like that. But anyways, Matt, my right-hand man, went down to Rabbit Stick this year to go learn some stuff. And while he was down there, everybody's like, "Where's Jason?" And I'm like, "What?" Why are they asking about me down there? So now I'm going to have to go down to Rabbit Stick. I'll probably go down there next year, I think next September. But it's just cool that, I just started out by wanting to help people with stuff in their house, and it developed into wanting to help people, out in the woods and teaching people and getting people home. That's my core reason for doing this. If I can save one life, everything I've done is worth it. But when I start hearing people ask, "Where's Jason at? Why isn't he here?" All these people that I respect and I'm like, they're my mentors, my elders, the people I think are super cool. They're asking me where I'm at. I'm like, what the heck? It just feels good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you should totally take advantage of that thing.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to get to meet a lot of these people that I've only interacted with, over the internet. I've had some Zoom calls with some people or just chatted with them or whatever. To actually, I'm pretty excited to be able to meet them face to face.
Yeah, you have some awesome. It's not necessarily a podcast, but it could be. It's like questions and answers. I've watched a few of those, and they're super informative.
Yeah.
So before we jump off here, man, let's drop your website, Instagram, YouTube channel, all that stuff.
Okay. So yeah, once again, my webpage to book classes is thesurvivaluniversity.com. On that webpage, you'll also find a lot of different links for information, videos, some blogs, just things to help you. You don't have to spend any money. You can just go out there and learn those skills.
A ton of free,
but
really good information there. So.
Yeah, I try to do the best I can, but you're not going to learn everything from a video. And I get a lot of people out there, I know how to do this, and because I've watched this video, and then they're like, oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Anyways, that's my webpage, thesurvivaluniversity.com. My YouTube channel is just CMM Survival, Colorado Mountain Man Survival. So CMM Survival. So YouTube/CMM Survival. My Facebook page is, again, CMM Survival, and my Instagram is CMM Survival. We are working. I'm working on building up the TSU page. So the TSU Facebook social media pages.
So go follow those people if you're listening to this. Follow Jason and everything that he's got going on at the school. So
the nice thing about the TSU pages, once we get them launched, not everybody likes to post to social media, which is kind of what my job has become, being the face man and the management.
I hate it, dude. I do my own right now.
You got to do it. Fuck. So I'm the one doing it. I'm trying to get everybody else to post out there. Everybody that's listening to this that works for me, take note, because I want to sell their personalities too. So I need to get people to recognize their faces. A lot of people recognize me that are in the industry. They're starting to recognize Matt because I force him to throw his face out there. But I've got several other guys that they're a little bit timid about putting themselves out there, and I'm like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
People gotta trust you. They gotta see that you're a good guy. But anyways, TSU, once I get them guys going, posting up, that's gonna probably be the main forum, the main feed for everybody, because I don't want to just advertise myself. It's not what I'm about. I want my guys to be able to have as much fun and enjoy as much as I do, and for other people to be able to find them. So Look for the Survival University or TSU out there on the Instagram pages, Facebook pages, and you can link to them through the CMM Survival pages. That's just where I started, was CMM Survival. So that's where the mass of my followers are at, is there.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, dude. Thank you so much again for your time, dude. Thanks for being our first guest ever on the podcast. This is episode 67 now, 67. So you can see where we're at.
Right on. No, thanks for having me back.
Dude, you're welcome back here anytime, man. You're right down the road. Hit me up anytime. And if you got a few minutes, I want to rap to you about the wilderness first responder for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Go out, follow Jason, take one of his classes if you're interested in that. And thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com. We wanted to let you know that the Mountainside Podcast is now available on Patreon. If you'd like access to bonus footage, behind-the-scenes content, ad-free listening, and much more, simply find the link in our bio or visit patreon.com/themountainside. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Uncanna CBD. If you're looking to trust a natural solution, then look no further than Uncanna to help you curb anxiety, get better sleep, helping with long-term pain, joint mobility, muscle recovery, and many other benefits. Then you need to try a full spectrum or broad spectrum CBD. And the only brand that I trust is Uncanna. I use their products daily, and I can attest to you of how well it works. Uncanna is also veteran owned and operated, and is just an incredible company that lives in the outdoors. Whether they're sponsoring professional rock climbers, dirt bikers, skiers, and many other athletes, helping veteran communities get outside, this is an incredible company with an incredible product. Because they are a sponsor here at the Mountainside Podcast, and you're listening to this ad right now, you can receive 10% off your entire order every time that you visit uncanna.com. All you have to do is simply enter promo code TMS at checkout to receive 10% off your entire CBD order, apparel, canine products, or whatever Uncanna has to offer, just by simply typing in the code TMS at checkout. Once again, that's promo code TMS at uncanna.com. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Onnit and their amazing new supplement, Alpha Brain Black. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know I'm a huge proponent of nootropics, and I use them on a regular basis, and specifically Alpha Brain from Onnit. The new Alpha Brain Black label is there to give you that little extra boost when you need razor sharp focus, relaxed alertness, and simply just to get in the zone or your flow state. Whether you're getting into a workout, focusing on a task at hand, the new Alpha Brain Black label is the next level in nootropics, and you can only find it at onnit.com. Nootropics is not the only thing that Onnit has to offer. There's a ton of supplements, workout programs, meal replacements, and free information for you to reach total human optimization. If you've never visited Onnit before, I strongly suggest that you go check out their website. I'm sure that there's something there that can make you feel better, react faster, or help you reach your full potential. And here's the best part. Because you are a Mountainside listener, every time that you visit onnit.com, you can receive 10% off your entire order simply by entering the promo code TMS at checkout. Once again, that's promo code TMS at onnit.com. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. What if I told you that creating an entire wood fire meal from start to finish was as easy as the flip of a switch? Well, with a Traeger Woodfire grill, it truly is. Once you experience the Traeger Woodfire taste and see how easy it is to use, you'll see why people all over the globe have stopped grilling and started Traegering. Believe me, if I can cook on one and make something taste good, anyone can do it. What has also helped someone like me master woodfire cooking is Traeger's 1,500 recipes available for free on their website or through the Wi-Fire app. I use it all the time. It's super simple to navigate. The thing I love about it is it's broken down into a bunch of different categories. So you're not thumbing through thousands of recipes trying to figure out what to cook. Simply just go on their website, go to the recipe tab, and it's broken down whether you're cooking breakfast, lunch, dinner, appetizers. You can break it down by the method of cooking, whether you're grilling, smoking, baking, roasting, braising, barbecuing, all the badass shit that you can do on a Traeger. They even have a diet tab. So whether you're on a paleo diet, vegan, vegetarian, all your recipes are right there to fit within your diet guidelines. Not only has Traeger made it super awesome and easy to get amazing recipes, they've made it super simple for Mountainside listeners to take advantage of exclusive offers and deals. All you have to do is visit themountainsidepodcast.com, scroll to the bottom of any page, and click the Traeger link.